There are moments in life when you speak every prayer you know, you kneel with hope in your bones, and yet heaven feels quiet. No thunder, no signs, no clear answers, only silence. But listen closely, because silence is not emptiness. Silence is weighty, silence is intentional. It is the place where faith is stretched and souls are strengthened. When God says nothing, it is not because he has turned away. It is because he is working in ways too deep for noise. In the quiet seasons, he is shaping patience where panic once lived, building courage where fear once ruled, and preparing blessings that cannot survive in rushed hands. What feels like being ignored is often the moment you are being held most carefully. Tonight, I invite you to lean into that stillness, to trust what you cannot hear, and to believe this truth with your whole heart. When God says nothing, he is doing everything. There are seasons when the air feels heavy with unanswered prayers, when you search the sky for a sign and all you meet is stillness. In those moments, doubt tries to whisper that nothing is happening, that heaven has gone silent and forgotten your name. But the deepest work of God rarely arrives with noise. It does not announce itself with fireworks or force its way into your understanding. Instead, it moves quietly, deliberately, shaping your life beneath the surface while you are busy wondering why nothing seems to change. God works deepest where you hear him least, because transformation requires depth, not drama. Roots do not grow in the sunlight, they grow in darkness, pressed into the soil where no one can applaud them. In the same way, your strength is being built in places that do not feel powerful. While you are waiting, he is removing what would break you later, teaching you endurance without applause, and giving you a faith that does not depend on constant reassurance. The silence is not punishment, it is preparation. When God is quiet, he is teaching you to walk without leaning on feelings. Anyone can believe when miracles are loud and answers are quick, but maturity is born when you trust without proof. In the quiet, you learn to listen with your heart instead of your ears. You begin to recognize that faith is not about hearing God every moment, but about knowing his character even when he says nothing. This is where shallow belief turns into unshakable conviction. There are battles being fought on your behalf that you cannot see. Doors are being closed that would have destroyed you. Paths are being redirected that would have led you away from your purpose. God's silence often means he is protecting you from information you are not yet strong enough to carry. If he explained everything now, it might overwhelm you, distract you, or cause you to interfere with what he is carefully arranging. So he works quietly, lovingly, wisely. One day, you will look back and realize that the silence was the answer. You will see how timing saved you, how waiting strengthened you, how the quiet season prepared you for a calling that required depth, patience, and courage. The God who seems silent today is the same God who never sleeps. He is moving pieces you cannot touch, aligning moments you cannot force, and growing you in ways that will one day leave you standing taller than before. So do not fear the quiet. Do not rush the stillness. Trust that where you hear God the least, he is working the most. Let the silence steady you instead of scare you. Because when God finally speaks again, you will realize he never stopped working. He was simply doing his greatest work in the deep. There are moments when waiting feels like standing still while the world runs past you. You watch others move forward, doors open for them, prayers answered quickly, and you wonder why your life seems paused. The delay can feel personal, like a denial wrapped in time. But what you call delay is often God protecting you from arriving too early, from stepping into a season you are not yet shaped to survive. Alignment takes time, and God is more interested in your readiness than your speed. Divine alignment is not about rushing blessings. It is about matching you with them at the right moment. A gift received too soon can become a burden. A door opened before you are prepared can break your spirit instead of building it. So God slows you down, not to frustrate you, but to fortify you. In the waiting, he is aligning your heart with humility, your mind with wisdom, and your spirit with strength. What feels like nothing happening is actually everything settling into place. Sometimes the delay is not about you at all. It is about other people, other circumstances, other pieces that must move before your moment can arrive. God is working beyond your sight, adjusting timelines, healing hearts, removing obstacles, and positioning help you do not even know you will need. If He rushed the process, you might miss the very connections and lessons that will sustain you later. Alignment requires patience because it involves more than one life, more than one story. Waiting also teaches you to release control. When answers do not come on your schedule, you learn to trust God's nature instead of your own plans. You begin to understand that faith is not proven by how fast things happen, but by how well you remain grounded when they do not. In the delay, your character is refined. Your dependence shifts from outcomes to trust. You stop chasing signs and start cultivating peace. One day, the timing will make sense. You will see that the delay saved you from heartbreak, disappointment, or a version of success that would have cost you your soul. You will recognize that God was not withholding, He was aligning you with the right moment, the right people, the right strength, and the right perspective. What once felt like rejection will reveal itself as redirection. So breathe in the waiting. Let it teach you. Let it strengthen you. Do not measure your life by how quickly things unfold, but by how deeply you are becoming who you were meant to be. Trust that every pause has purpose, every delay has design, and every quiet moment is moving you closer to what is meant for you. Because when God finally brings it together, you will realize the wait was not wasted, it was perfectly timed. There is a kind of strength that comes from noise, from applause, from visible victories, and then there is a deeper strength born in silence. God's quiet seasons do not announce themselves as powerful, yet they are the very moments that shape you into someone unbreakable. When everything is loud, you can borrow courage from excitement. But when everything is quiet, you must discover what lives inside you. That is where true strength is formed. In the quiet, you learn how to stand without leaning. There is no constant reassurance, no immediate results, no crowd cheering you on. You wake up and choose faith again, not because it feels good, but because it is right. Each day you endure without quitting adds weight to your spirit. You may not notice it happening, but patience is thickening, resilience is hardening, and your soul is learning how to survive storms without panic. God builds unshakable strength by allowing you to face moments where you feel weak. Weakness strips away pride and false confidence. It shows you what you can no longer rely on: people, comfort, timing, control. And in that stripping, something holy happens. You discover that God's presence is not dependent on circumstances. You learn that you can be tired and still faithful, uncertain and still obedient, broken and still standing. That realization changes you forever. Quiet seasons also teach emotional discipline. You stop reacting to every fear and every opinion. You learn how to be still with your thoughts, how to process pain without becoming bitter, how to wait without becoming angry. Strength is not always about pushing forward. Sometimes it is about holding yourself together when nothing is moving. God uses the stillness to teach you mastery over your emotions instead of being mastered by them. There is also strength in learning to trust without evidence. When God is quiet, you cannot rely on signs to carry you. You must rely on His character. That kind of trust does not shake easily. When future challenges come, you will remember this season and say, "If I survive silence, I can survive this." The quiet becomes your testimony, not because it was easy, but because it proved that your faith was real. One day, life will grow loud again. Opportunities will come, doors will open, and people will see your confidence and wonder where it came from. They will not see the nights you waited, the prayers that went unanswered, the tears you wiped away in private. But you will know that your strength was not given suddenly. It was built slowly, patiently, and deliberately in God's quiet hands. So do not despise this season. Do not rush it or resent it. Let it do its work. Let God finish what He started in the stillness. Because when the winds rise and the ground begins to shake, you will discover that you are not fragile anymore. You are rooted. You are steady. You are strong in ways that can never be taken from you. There are prayers you remember vividly, words you spoke with trembling hope, believing that heaven would surely respond. And when the answer does not come the way you imagined, disappointment settles in quietly. You replay your faith, your sincerity, your effort, wondering what you did wrong. But unanswered prayers are not evidence of neglect. They are often evidence of intention. God does not ignore a sincere heart. He responds in ways that serve a deeper purpose than comfort alone. Sometimes what you ask for is good, but not aligned with what you are becoming. God sees the full picture, the future weight you will carry, the responsibilities you will hold, the strength you will need. If He answered every prayer exactly as requested, He might satisfy a moment while sabotaging a destiny. So He withholds, redirects, or reshapes the answer, not to hurt you, but to protect the version of you that is still being formed. When prayers go unanswered, purpose is quietly taking shape. You begin to grow in areas you never prayed about: patience, discernment, humility, endurance. These are not glamorous blessings, but they are necessary ones. God is answering a bigger prayer you may not have known how to ask: the prayer to be ready, the prayer to be whole, the prayer to be strong enough to stand when life becomes heavier. Purpose requires preparation, and preparation often happens in denial, not fulfillment. There are also times when unanswered prayers force you to move. If everything were granted easily, you might never change direction, never seek wisdom, never leave what is familiar. Silence pushes you to examine your heart, your motives, your attachments. It teaches you to separate what you want from what you need. In that process, purpose becomes clearer, even if the pain remains present. God's answers are not always immediate, and they are rarely simple. An unanswered prayer may be shaping your character, positioning you for impact beyond yourself. You may be praying for relief, while God is preparing you to become a source of strength for others. You may be asking for escape, while God is building resilience that will inspire those who watch your life. Purpose often grows where comfort is absent. One day, understanding will replace confusion. You will look back and see that what you begged for would have limited you, distracted you, or delayed your growth. You will realize that God was not saying no out of cruelty, but wisdom. The unanswered prayer will reveal itself as a redirection that saved you from becoming less than you were meant to be. So do not measure God's love by answered requests alone. Measure it by the person you are becoming in the waiting. Trust that even when heaven feels quiet, something sacred is unfolding within you. Because when prayers go unanswered, it is not that God has stopped listening. It is that He is answering with purpose, shaping a future that requires more from you than you can yet see. There is a place in life that feels uncomfortable, uncertain, and often overlooked: the waiting room. It is where plans pause, answers delay, and expectations sit quietly beside unanswered questions. The waiting room can feel like a punishment, like life has told you to sit still while everything meaningful happens somewhere else. But the waiting room is not wasted time. It is sacred ground where God does some of His most intentional work. In the waiting room, nothing looks impressive on the outside. There are no trophies, no announcements, no visible progress to show the world. Yet inside you, something is being rearranged. God uses this space to slow you down so you can notice what you were too busy to face before. He reveals weaknesses you tried to ignore and strengths you did not know you had. Waiting strips away the illusion of control and replaces it with awareness, humility, and deeper trust. This season teaches you how to sit with yourself without running. You learn patience not as a concept, but as a daily practice. Each moment you choose not to quit, not to rush, not to force what is not ready, you are growing. The waiting room trains your spirit to remain steady, even when outcomes are uncertain. That kind of stability cannot be rushed. It must be lived through. God also uses waiting to protect you. What you are asking for may be real, but the timing matters more than the desire. If the door opened too soon, it might crush you instead of blessing you. In the waiting room, God strengthens your capacity so that when the moment comes, you can handle it with wisdom instead of fear, gratitude instead of entitlement, and strength instead of pride. Waiting also clarifies your motives. When nothing is happening externally, you are forced to ask yourself why you want what you want. Is it for validation, comfort, escape, or purpose? God refines your intentions in the quiet, aligning your heart with what truly matters. By the time the answer comes, you are no longer chasing it for the wrong reasons. There are lessons learned in waiting that success alone cannot teach. Compassion grows there. Empathy deepens there. You become more gentle with others because you know what it feels like to hope and not yet see. God uses the waiting room to shape not just your future, but your character, so that what you receive does not change you for the worse. One day, you will leave the waiting room, and it will not look like wasted time anymore. You will recognize that every pause prepared you, every delay strengthened you, every quiet moment trained you. You will walk into the next season with clarity, confidence, and calm, carrying lessons that only waiting could teach. So do not despise this place. Do not rush past it or resent it. Breathe here, learn here, trust here, because the waiting room is not where life stops. It is where life quietly gets ready to begin. There is a kind of listening that only develops when words disappear. When God is silent, you are invited into a deeper awareness, one that no longer depends on constant instruction or obvious signs. In that quiet, discernment begins to sharpen. You start paying attention to what you once ignored, the weight of your choices, the direction of your thoughts, the subtle tug of wisdom inside your spirit. Silence trains you to notice what noise kept hidden. When answers come quickly, it is easy to follow without thinking. But when God is quiet, you must learn to distinguish between fear and intuition, impulse and wisdom, desire and truth. You begin to ask better questions, not just about what you want, but about what is right. Discernment grows when you are no longer rushed by urgency. In the stillness, clarity forms slowly, carefully, like light rising at dawn instead of flashing like lightning. God's silence also exposes the voices you have been listening to. Without constant reassurance from heaven, you start to recognize which voices bring peace and which bring confusion. You learn which influences strengthen your faith and which quietly weaken it. Discernment is refined when you realize not every opportunity is a blessing, and not every open door is meant for you. Silence teaches you to wait, to test, and to choose with wisdom instead of emotion. Trust grows alongside discernment. When God does not explain himself, you are faced with a decision to panic or to trust. And each time you choose trust, even without evidence, it becomes stronger. Trust stops being about outcomes and starts being about relationship. You no longer trust God because things are going well. You trust him because you know who he is. That kind of trust does not crumble under pressure. In silence, you also learn to trust yourself more, not in arrogance, but in alignment. You recognize that God has placed wisdom within you, shaped by experience, prayer, and growth. You stop doubting every decision simply because heaven is quiet. Instead, you move forward with humility, knowing that God guides not only through words, but through character, values, and inner peace. This season teaches you that trust is not passive. It is active obedience without constant confirmation. It is choosing patience when anxiety feels easier. It is staying faithful when shortcuts are tempting. God's silence strengthens your spiritual muscles, training you to walk by conviction rather than convenience. You become steady, not easily shaken by uncertainty or opinion. One day, when God speaks again, you will hear him differently. His words will carry more weight because you have learned how to listen beyond sound. You will recognize his guidance faster because your discernment has been sharpened. You will trust his direction more deeply because your faith has been tested and proven. So do not fear the silence. Let it refine you. Let it teach you how to see clearly and trust deeply. Because when God is quiet, He is not withdrawing. He is developing discernment in you and anchoring your trust so firmly that when life grows loud again, you will not lose your way. There are times when life feels out of order, as if pieces that once made sense have been scattered without explanation. Relationships shift, plans fall apart, opportunities disappear, and the future looks unfamiliar. In those moments, God's silence can feel unsettling, even frightening. You want clarity, reassurance, a reason. But while you are focused on what is breaking, God is quietly rearranging what is becoming. What feels like chaos to you is often careful placement in His hands. Rearranging requires disruption. God cannot build a new structure on an old foundation that can no longer support where you are going. So He begins to move things. He removes people who were comfortable but limiting. He closes doors you were too attached to walk away from. He allows plans to fail that would have kept you small. None of this happens randomly. Every shift has purpose, even when it feels painful and unnecessary in the moment. When God is rearranging everything, He often starts with your heart. He changes what you value, what you tolerate, and what you trust. You may notice your desires evolving, your priorities shifting, and your tolerance for what once drained you disappearing. This internal rearrangement is just as important as the external one. God knows that if He only changed your surroundings without changing you, you would recreate the same struggles in a different place. Silence during this season is intentional. If God explained every move, you might resist the process. You might cling to what feels familiar instead of allowing what is necessary. So He works quietly, letting the changes speak for themselves over time. The loss you mourn today may be the very space needed for what is coming tomorrow. Rearranging requires room, and room is often made through letting go. This process also teaches surrender. You realize how little control you truly have, and instead of fighting it, you begin to release it. You stop forcing outcomes and start trusting timing. That surrender brings peace, not because everything is fixed, but because you understand that you are not abandoned. You are being guided, even when you do not understand the direction. One day, clarity will arrive. You will look at your life and see how the pieces fit together in ways they never could before. The separation led to healing. The delay led to wisdom. The silence led to strength. What once felt like everything falling apart will reveal itself as everything falling into place. God was not destroying your life. He was designing a better one. So when God says nothing, do not assume He is distant. He is close, attentive, and intentional. He is rearranging details you cannot see, protecting you from paths that would have harmed you, and aligning you with a future that matches the person you are becoming. Trust the process, even when it feels uncomfortable. Because when the rearranging is complete, you will step into a life that makes sense, not just to your mind, but to your soul, and you will realize that the silence was proof that God was working all along.